Hello, everybody, and welcome to Night 2 of Giant Bomb's E3 2017 coverage. I'm Jeff Gerstmann. Wow, we've got an action-packed evening scheduled for you for the next 1,000 hours. I don't know that we're going to go until the sun comes up, I think, one of these nights here. But we're starting the show with a show stopper. Welcome back to our set here. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I always
thanks
love
for
doing
coming
this
through.
every year. It's great.
Yeah. Wow, last year, talking about Project Scorpio and kind of laying out the vision for kind of the future of the Xbox ecosystem, I guess.
Yeah.
And now here we are, a year later, and you've got an actual form factor and launch date and price and all this stuff. How's it been over the last year, kind of, as running this ship, as watching the reaction of people kind of getting used to this concept?
Yeah, it's a good question. We obviously rolling into last year's E3, we knew the box that we were going to go build because we wouldn't announce it if we didn't. But we also knew we had some engineering work to go do. So there was some question about whether we would announce it on stage. I think we talked about that a little bit last year. But we also knew that we wanted to, and developers would start getting it through the year. So we felt, okay, let's just put it out there so we're not kind of in hide mode. And we've seen some good momentum. We had obviously the Digital Foundry work where they were able to get a console and come up and visit us and talk about it.
It seems smart to get that out there rather than just let them leak it eventually, because it seems like that's how a lot of this stuff goes these days.
And also our show here, I had Kareem out on stage. It was great having one of our head engineers come out and talk about it, but I didn't want to spend a lot of time at E3 going through speeds and feeds and all this stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So having Digital Foundry kind of tear the box down and talk about what they thought, I thought was good. And it's been nice. I've been using the box at home for a couple months now as my main console, which gave us a lot of confidence coming into E3. We've had games up and running for a while, starting in about January. So feeling good about the program. Still have to ship, right? So we've given the date, November 7th, the name, the price. We'll talk more about pre-order coming up, but we obviously still have to get done. But it looks good.
Yeah, and it's it's giving people it's a very different market now, or I guess the console cycles feel weird now. You have Sony out there with the Pro,
right?
You have the Xbox One X, coming. And do you feel like that this is kind of just that this is the way forward, and now we'll see every 4 years or so that this is kind of how we're gonna go, or do you think that we'll kind of reset and you'll go like, okay, now we've got a whole new Xbox platform, starting from scratch, not kind of, hey, this backwards compatibility, Sony do the PlayStation 5 and we'll do it all over again? Or is it kind of going to be like this, like phones almost?
It's probably not the answer I should say, but I don't know. I'm watching, and one of the things that you mentioned, the games industry is different now, and that's absolutely true. Like if I look at the top games that people are playing on Xbox One today, many of those games are 3-4 years old. Right. And that didn't used to be the case. Like when I was back, I kind of bought a cartridge, I plugged it in my N64, I finished that game, took that cartridge out, put the next cartridge in. So you kind of had a natural recycle of the content, which meant I think that the generation step function that we had with consoles felt more natural. But now, I mean, you saw it, what was it, April, when Black Ops 2 hit back compat. Right. And it hit like top 10 on NPD sales. And you can imagine on Xbox Live, the thing was massive. Yeah. And that's a game that's people been playing for years. GTA 5 is a beast on Xbox One. Minecraft. I mean, so you get these games that actually stretch out over years, which didn't used to be the case. Yeah. And I think that does impact the platform and the hardware that we build.
For sure. And that's something, we tend to focus, or I think the traditional way to kind of focus on game sales and a lot of this stuff is we think about opening week.
That's right.
The same way the movie industry would do. It's like, what's the opening week take? Where are they at with it? What's the first month? And it really just seems like, or what are the pre-order numbers even?
That's right.
It seems like that stuff, while not unimportant, is just mattering less and less as time goes on. Do you see on the software side, it's just definitely like longer tail as we get more into this kind of software as a service and updates and this sort of stuff?
It's even more impactful than longer tail. Sometimes you see things start small and actually get bigger over time. I think Ark is a great example of that. PlayerUnknown, great example of that. These games that come out and actually get bigger as more people play, and the virality of just people watching other people play or seeing their friends play, those things It impacts E3 even, because E3, I mean, you and I know this, because E3 was traditionally about a bunch of game publishers bringing their games here so the retailers could come to see what was going to be good,
Right.
so they could put their pre-orders in, so we would then make enough cartridges and discs for the fall so that when the games hit, you could actually, they weren't sold out.
Right.
And that's where
Yeah.
pre-order came from and all this other. And now you walk the show floor and it's as much about Twitch and Facebook and Mixer and people and the influencers as it is about the actual games. You got a booth for a game like Lawbreakers, which is a service-based online game. I think it impacts everything that we do. I think it's a good thing, but it does mean that you have to kind of have your head up and be reacting and trying to predict where this business is going.
Definitely. I mean, you've got people waiting in line in your booth to play Minecraft.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on Minecraft. I really enjoy Minecraft, but at the same time, it's like that game's out. Like, I know there's an update coming, but like if there are games you're here to see, like Minecraft is out.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, it's ours, so it's weird when I talk about it too much. But it shipped in 2009, right? And our biggest month ever was December of this last year. And so it's another example of something that gets bigger. I think it's good for the industry as a whole, because it means that game publishers and developers can have more predictable revenue over a longer period of time, which keeps them healthy so they can invest in new things. And we see things like Anthem and Destiny 2 and other big things coming, which is great. One of the things I worry about, and I've talked about it a little bit, are the kind of single-player, story-driven games, because it's hard when so much of the gameplay that happens on a daily basis is on these games that are long and growing and service-based. And then you get a smaller single-player game, and how does it find its audience when so many hours are taken up? Because people aren't finishing the games that they are playing.
Exactly, and you get these comparisons that people have to make of just like, well, it's $60 either way. Am I going to get a game like Destiny that I'm going to play for potentially 400 hours or something?
I'm 700.
Or okay, that's all right. I at some point had to do other things.
You're smarter than I am.
Or am I going to get a 12-hour campaign?
That's right.
And I think that's been interesting to watch, because I think back to when I was a kid, I wanted games that were going to last me a long time because they were expensive.
That's right.
I went and bought. I told the story, but I went and bought Strider on the Genesis for $80.
Yeah.
Brought it home, finished it, and I was crushed.
Yeah.
I was like, that was $80 I just spent on that thing.
I remember when the closing credits would come up on a game, and it made me sad. Like, I didn't want it. Baldur's Gate. I finished that game. I'm like, I love this game.
Put out an expansion. What
and
are we
then
doing?
they did, right?
Like, okay,
but then people, and it's right that game designers have looked at that mechanic and said, hey, how do we go and just make a game around me? Destiny is kind of one of the Division, like these games that actually are just about perpetuating the gameplay, which, like I said, is, I think, a very healthy thing. But it does change the industry. It changes our hardware roadmap. It changes compatibility. It's one of the reasons I like bringing the original Xbox compatibility, 360 compatibility back. It's because I want some of those old games should also get played in this time. And even things like Game Pass for us. And I'm trying to think about how maybe I don't want to go spend $60 on a game that I think has a beginning and middle and end that I can actually see. I hope it never gets to that. But certain people might have that mentality. Maybe there's a different business model we can put in. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try, because I want all kinds of games to be successful. I don't think we want to see the death of games that have a beginning and middle and an end.
Definitely. Do you think that Xbox Game Pass, I mean, so that is 100 games right now.
For $10 a month.
Yeah, and it sounds like games will kind of rotate in and out of that. Do you ever foresee, in the near future, do you think a game would launch on Game Pass? Or are you kind of strictly looking at it as like, anything that's like an Xbox One piece of software, maybe it has to be like, it'll be 9 months old or something like that before?
No, I want to see, I don't think it's for every game would launch on Game Pass.
Yeah.
But I've said this before, I see what's happened in television, and I think we have some great television being created right now, high quality, good investment in the content, and it's because the business model of subscription has allowed people like Netflix, HBO, Amazon to invest in some great television. And Game Pass, games are structurally different than television, so I don't know if it'll be exactly the same. But when we announced Game Pass, Shannon Loftus and I were getting a ton of pings from external developers that said, hey, maybe this is the way that I can launch my episodic game.
Right.
Maybe this is the way I can launch and it doesn't mean you wouldn't also be able to just go buy the thing if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I hope so. Like, I hope the model there is we share back money, right, that comes through that system. Yeah. So and if that can fund those kind of games being developed, single player, even episodic games, then I think it's a good thing, and I'd love to see it on more platforms.
Totally, it's something that I've been hoping that someone would figure out before too long is how to do something that kind of resembles this like Netflix for games idea. And it's something what everyone always says, like, this is what Nintendo needs to do instead of this virtual console one-off sale, like do a subscription thing. And it sounds like they might get into that. And then to see Xbox Game Pass come along and be actually downloading the games. Sony's had that streaming Gaikai stuff, and it's similar.
It is. And if there's not PSN Now, I thought was something that was innovative for Sony to go and do. And I want to share what we learn with Game Pass, because again, as an industry, I don't want everything to turn into one kind of game. I think a diversity in the kinds of games that we can play is just a good thing for the industry.
Yeah, and it seems like we're maybe at that point if you think about it as the way that the console cycles went before, like this is the point where you really start seeing those wider games. The more broad approach to kind of hitting everyone with different types of games.
Well, we tried to do that on our stage this year. One of the games I was really proud of on our stage was Super Lucky's Tales. Yeah. And it's one of those games that, at least from a style, happens usually later in a console cycle. Right. Turns out it's a real game, a little bit like Ori, like real game, difficult game, good challenge. But we had the 42 games, going all the PR stuff. But the diversity of games that we were able to get to show on our stage, I do think you're right, is kind of part of where we are in this console generation. And I wanted to make sure we had, from Metro to Lucky's Tales to Forza, I wanted to make sure that breadth of what this industry is able to create shows up on the stage.
Yeah. So Super Lucky's Tale, follow up to a VR game.
Yeah.
It sounded like that there was some talk ahead of the press conference that maybe VR wouldn't be a focus, and sure enough, not really a mention, and that's led to some talk. Where do you kind of put your commitment to VR right now that it's been out in the marketplace for a while? How are you feeling about it?
I'm long-term bullish on, we call it mixed reality, but like VR.
Sure, right.
Yeah. Well, we call it mixed reality not for any kind of weird naming reason. I do think augmented reality, things like Pokemon Go and virtual reality, kind of a completely enclosed, immersive experience, I do think there's convergence in technology that should happen in those worlds. So it
seems like we'll eventually get clear glasses that can black out.
That's
for
exactly
VR.
right. That's exactly right. So anyway, long-term, I'm a big believer in the category. I think it's incredibly immersive. I think you can deliver a feeling that, whether it's vertigo or a sense of new space and environment, that is just incredible. And I can't wait to see that come to mass market games and see what developers and creators are able to do. My view is in the family room environment, we're probably a few years away from it being something that will really work. I think the cords are kind of an issue. That said, I think the manufacturers that are out there it's great that as an industry we're investing, whether it's PSVR, whether it's HoloLens, whether it's HTC, Oculus. I mean, this is what the games industry should be about, is investing in new technology. Our investment is on the Windows side right now. We built Scorpio, and we said this last year, the power of the box is fine for controlling for having a VR, MR experience run on it. It's really that family room environment that we're struggling a little bit with, and we're saying, okay, well, let's stay more on the PC, where we're seeing action and developer interest, until we really get the art form of what it means to create great MR experiences. And then it can go to more places. I do think we need to lose the cords at some point.
Yeah.
I think we're a few years from that.
I've gotten pretty good at stepping over them. but yeah, definitely. You think about like, I'm completely immersed in this weird space doing this other thing, but somehow there's still some part of my lizard brain that knows that the cord is right there and has to step over it, and it breaks it a little bit.
Well, and in a family room environment, there's just more people. So I want to make... And again, it's not a shot on what anybody else is doing. I love what we're all trying to go do. And actually, the teams share a lot of learning. We've had the Sony team up. They've seen what we're doing with HoloLens. We talk to the Valve guys all the time. Because we're so early. I don't think this is a time for us to be competitive in this space. It's a time for us to share our learnings and try to get better. Because the market is years away, but we want to be ready for it, and we want to be kind of, as an industry, state of the art when it's actually here.
So there was a trademark for something called direct reality not that long ago.
Yeah.
Is that, when I look at that, I think of DirectX as being the thing that helped a lot of different graphics cards talk to a lot of different software. Is direct reality going to be an easy way for people to make games for any VR headset without having to worry about.
You're totally right. Like when we focus on Windows mixed reality, which is the version of Windows that we're thinking, like the API platform is actually not a version of Windows, just in Windows 10. But and then you start getting into more the tech side of it, of whether it's direct sound, direct audio, direct input, all under the umbrella of DirectX. I think it's important as the Windows platform company that we don't start getting people tied into, well, you bought this HMD, sorry, it's not going to work with these other things. Like when I buy a great monitor and I plug it in my PC, I'm not worried about whether Windows understands it, and some games play on it and some games don't. I mean, these are all when I said the kind of multi-year journey that we're all on, I think this is all part of that. Windows as a platform has to natively support any HMD that you'd plug in. And we've been getting good feedback from the Oculus team and Valve about things that we need to do in Windows 10.
Yeah, it just seems like that's where that market is right now, right? I mean, it's, there aren't a ton of headsets out there, and, the fear is that if it starts to fragment too much, then, over the last few weeks here, leading up to the show, I played a lot of multiplayer VR games.
Cool.
And they're all a lot of fun. And I kept telling most of the devs, like, this is great. It's also probably the last time I'll be able to find another person to play this with, because that's just where it's at right now. If you're not Rec Room, where it's free and hot,
great.
Yeah, it's amazing. Then it's hard to find other players.
Yeah, and I worry. A couple of years ago, I think we had maybe an over exuberance around VR, which put more interest in it than maybe the tech and experiences could deliver. And I think that's a dangerous spot for us as an industry, because this isn't something that's going to die. This is something that it's not going to be 3D
the tech works
or something.
Too well for it to die.
And the experience is way too immersive, right? This is
too cool.
It is going to happen. But you see it even in like where VCs and other people are investing, where it's like everybody's got to be VR, 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 and then a couple people get their hands burned and everybody runs away.
Right.
And I think we have to moderate the temperature a bit around where we are, and not try to tell everybody this is the year of VR.
Yeah.
Because I think then when it doesn't happen, it's like, okay, then you get the
Zero
biggest failure of E3 is VR, and it's like it's neither one of those things.
Yeah.
And we're somewhere in the middle. We're still learning. This will happen. So our focus is on the Windows platform, making sure that head-mounted display manufacturers can plug in. We have 4 OEMs shipping actually good HMDs at really affordable prices as well. I watched you guys when you did your VR thing. You were in, I think you had it on. Everybody was kind of watching you, and I like that you guys get in, use the experience, and tell people in kind of real-world, non-covered it language about what you see and what you feel.
It's been effective for us. And in a way that like talking about VR on a podcast isn't.
Yeah.
When we do that, we write articles about VR, and I've heard this from other outlets, the interest just isn't there. It's met with a rage that is usually reserved for mobile games. As like lame as that can be. And so we found some success with just like, hey, we're going to put these headsets on and just try
that was great.
stuff.
I watched.
Because that's the thing that people want to know. Like,
well, and you guys are genuine enough. I think people know that you're not going to over fanboy on one thing. You're also not going to be overly critical. Like, you're going to give your honest opinion about how this thing feels, how the experience is working, what you like and don't like, and I think people value that.
Well, we try. Thank you. So that's the future.
That was to butter you up, so you go
right.
easy on me.
Well, that's the future. Let's talk about the past and making the past the present again. Xbox 360 on Xbox One has been really cool to see in a way that even I didn't anticipate.
Thanks.
And now you're doing it. You're going to bring original Xbox games.
Yeah.
Is that the official new term now?
No.
Now that Xbox
I feel
One
kind
has
of
cluttered
silly
up the
even.
language.
Yeah, that's the problem. Honestly, like the reason the reason this term I grabbed onto the term was because when you say Xbox One, like the original Xbox?
Because people talk about the PlayStation 1.
That's right.
Yeah,
and I mean their naming lets you do that. Ours kind of like 360 one, like we're all over the place. So So anyway, I'll call it original Xbox. The original Xbox backward compatibility was something that was important to me. 360. I mean, I've been in the game industry for quite a while. I said it before, I see this as an art form. There are games, not just on Xbox, there are games that we should all play to understand. Just like there are books that people should read from, there are movies we should go watch Citizen Kane if you haven't seen it, right? It's a great movie. Go listen to the White Album, right? So you kind of understand where the art form comes from, and I think it's a shame that sometimes great games get lost when consoles go away. I also at the launch of Xbox One, I was pretty vocal on our leadership team about wanting to support 360 back compat, because we were making this digital story and reality around an Xbox One console.
Right.
And I always felt like it was a little hollow to tell people to buy into the digital platform on Xbox One, but not respect the 360 games that they had purchased from us.
Especially after, I mean, the original Xbox Live was shut down, and not that there were a ton of digital purchases there, but it was a case of just like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I think it led to a lot of consumers going like, oh, is this just going to happen again? Are they going to shut off the 360 someday? Which I would imagine not. You learn your lessons on that sort of stuff.
Well, and when you move it forward and see use, then of course not. And I live even through like Games for Windows Live, which was something that people. So I want these games to be played. I think they should be played. I also love the fact that when somebody goes and starts playing The Witcher, I'll use The Witcher 3, you can actually go back and figure out where this franchise came from.
Right.
Because not every gamer's an old person like me and was around when all those franchises come about. Even like Halo, I think about the launch of Halo CE, and we've got kids that are now 20 years old, and you think, okay, that guy was like 5 when this game launched. And
It's definitely like, when I started like reviewing games, it was like 3DO. It was like the PlayStation was coming, the Saturn was coming, and that sort of stuff. And then, doing this at some point, you get people in there where like their main frame of reference is like, I grew up playing Halo.
I know.
What are you even saying? Like, what does that even mean?
Don't you know it all came from Quake?
Yeah,
Everything.
like, come on.
Quake's
Wolfenstein
coming
3.
back.
Okay,
Yeah.
Blake Stone is no. So that's been really cool to see. I imagine that emulating the original Xbox, just because it was I'm trying to remember what the
It was an
like,
x86.
it was like that NV1, like the graphics part was hard.
The graphic part was a little harder. Frankly, we just have enough horsepower now for the original Xbox games that we can kind of just brute force those things.
So are you brute force coming to
No, Alan Hartman, no. Brute force, no. Lizard Man, no.
What are you doing? So Crimson Sky is the only game.
No, I think we also announced
right now,
Fusion Frenzy was coming.
Bill Gates' favorite, as I understand. Yeah.
We have a list of. It won't be as big as 360. I'll tell people that.
Sure.
Like just the rights, and it's more difficult. So we're now we're like 380 or something on 360 back compat games, 380 games. It won't be that for original Xbox. So this is why we kind of announced it. I'd say lower key than we did with 360 back compat. But there are some games. Crimson was one that I really wanted to bring back. Jordan Weissman, like great FASA. Like I mean, this is a game that I think people should play. And there's a list of other original Xbox games that'll be coming back. They play great. Like it's funny. I mean, not funny, but the back compat team has done such a good job with the emulator, even the 360 games. Many times, actually almost all the time now, when they emulate a 360 game, the Xbox One version actually runs better than it did on the original
hardware. A little more stable, like
That's right.
Additional layer, just kind of smooth it out a little bit.
That's right. And we're seeing the same thing with the original Xbox game back compat. And I love to be able to do that. I think it's both. It's not true that everybody plays every back compat game. Right. But I think all of us have 2 or 3 games in our past that were important to us for our own reasons. First game I finished. I played with my friend. I played with Voodoo Vince with my daughters. So when you look at the program, you kind of pick a lot of games because I can't predict what the games, but they're memorials for us as gamers. That this was like brute force for some people, Blinks for some crazy people, and it's so I'm proud of the program and the work that the team has done.
Yeah, I actually I have an original Xbox hooked up at home because my wife really loves Sudeki.
I know Sudeki.
And
Climax did that.
Yeah, and so she was just like, I want to play Sudeki again. Like,
that's a first-party game too.
Yeah. So if you could, so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go out into the garage and go through all these Rubbermaid tubs and let's pull this out and hook it all up. And so the idea of, especially a machine like that it's not easy to play those games any other way. There are some older consoles you can play in a wide variety of ways on a PC, for example.
That's right.
And the Xbox isn't really one of them currently. And so
not currently.
I saw you out there saying that you would like to bring this stuff to PC as well.
I would. I want people to be able to play these games. certain people, just the console isn't something that they want, and
Sure.
it's more difficult on PC. Like, there's no doubt the fixed hardware spec of a console
right. Yeah.
when you're going from to on the emulation side does make it easier. But that emulation team, those team is rock stars, and I'd love to just be able to bring some of those games over to PC. I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be really cool to see. So the PC plays an interesting role in all of this, kind of as we, get ready to put the Xbox One X out, and you're getting ready to put it out there. And,
Yeah.
That it kind of gets back to that Xbox Play Anywhere stuff of like, well, now this stuff all lives in the Windows Store as well.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of people that may have a PC that is going to be more powerful than the X.
Yep.
And certainly more powerful than a baseline Xbox One S.
Yeah.
And so when you think about the X, is it kind of meant to be this middle ground? Like who do you see as the ideal consumer for the X? Because I look at it and go like, well, I have a 4K TV right here, but the PC is also right here. I could just do it.
You could.
But at this point, like I'm relatively starved for 4K content, so like I'm certainly going to get a Scorpio. So well, I want to see what this thing looks like and hook it all up, and I want to know. But at the same time, I'm also I buy a lot of stuff at this point, So it's
you're a man of means.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Sure, yeah. When it comes to video games, I make it happen. I do what I need to do, and but I have that PC right there, so I can right now today play Nier Automata at 4K,
Great.
and play Doom at 4K and all this sort of stuff. And so, when you think about the Xbox overall, are you still thinking primarily about the boxes themselves, or is it really kind of shifting to more of an ecosystem mentality for you?
I mean, I definitely think about Xbox Live as the vibrancy of our platform. When I look at it, it shows me what people are playing and how many people are playing, and the kind of how many people have friends and how many people are in parties. Like all of these things I look at as the real health of our ecosystem. I mean, if somebody wants to play their 4K games with a PC plugged into their television, I love that. In fact, we built our controller with Bluetooth so that you could go do that. I think that's and if that's the way you play our games and you log in, and fantastic. Like I have no issue with that.
Right.
I mean, our fundamental business, people won't care about this, but like as Microsoft, is not about trying to get you to buy one piece of hardware. Like that's not the business that we're in. We're a services company, we're a platform company, we're a gaming company, and our gaming strategy fits right into what Microsoft's trying to do. Now, I love our Xbox One console. We've been two of them in 2 years now, right? So we're all in,
right?
And we're thinking about the future. The reason I want us to stay and keep doing consoles the way we do is because, one, not everybody's going to plug their PC into their television.
Right.
I think the gameplay.
It took me. I had a PC sitting there for years before I got a 4K TV, and never really thought to. It was like I could do this, but
yeah. I mean, and a lot of people don't have a PC near their television.
Right.
A lot of laptops that integrated GPU. They're not going to go play.
Yeah.
So if you look at the price point of Xbox One X, I feel great about that price point relative to a PC on 4K. But a PC that's capable of doing 4K does a lot more than what a console does. So it's kind of a different scenario.
Yeah.
This is probably also where you're doing your email, you're browsing like you're doing a ton of stuff on
4K
that.
email is amazing, let me tell you.
It is. But PCs are a multifunction device that do a lot more and than what a game console does. And I think that's great. I love, obviously, as Microsoft, we love PCs and growth in PCs. And it's not true that everybody's going to put their PC next to the television. For Xbox One X, when you talked about 4K content, one thing that was important to me was making sure we built a console that was capable, and we can get into the true 4K, checkerboardy, but build a console that could run native 4K content. Not necessarily from a marketing perspective. The content developers need to know that there's an install base that's large enough so they can go target it. Right now on the PC side, the kind of install base of graphics cards that are really capable of running content at 4K. I know this. We ship Gears, we ship Horizon. Like we're in that business. It's there and people do it. A lot of the reason is because PC has forward compatibility. Like there's more graphics cards to come. So you put that into your game so that 2 years from now it still looks state of the art.
Turn it up to Ultra and we'll be fine.
That's right. That's right. But I wanted to make sure that as this game console comes out, it helps build an install base so more developers are targeting 4K as an output for their game, and almost all the third parties are building a PC version and a console version of their game, right? And in fact, when you listen to people like Jesse at Arc or whatever talk about how they bring their games over to Xbox One X, they start with their PC build in most cases, bring it over. Most of them are getting up in a couple days at most. Then I think with Arc, he's able to set it at kind of his ultra settings. He's got a little bit of headroom. He's running it at 60, and then he'll start adding graphic techniques. But he started with his PC build and coming over. Right. So I think it'll help you on the PC side as well, because you'll just get more. You'll have more sockets for those developers to build games for that are capable of 4K.
They'll be thinking more about that idea of just like, hey, let's start thinking about this high-end stuff. And
in terms of who the Xbox One X is for specifically, it's a console, so it's for somebody who wants to play games on a video game console. It's somebody who wants the most powerful console that's out there, like a premium console experience. It's not for everybody, right? Just like the Elite controllers, not for everybody. Not everybody should go buy a $150 controller. Some people just get the controller you have. It's a great controller. Go play games. So we're going to sell a lot of Xbox One S's. And we'll sell more S's than X's, I suspect, next year.
Yeah.
Because the price point's important to a lot of people.
It's really getting closer and closer to these like big mass market numbers.
That's right.
Where you're just like, okay, like we can really.
But there's some people that go out and buy a Titan X as well and put it in their PC, and it's for a specific thing. And there's also people on the console side that buy Elite controllers that buy a PS4 Pro, right? That want the best experience their console ecosystem offers. And I wanted to make sure that the best we had to offer in Xbox One consoles was the best thing that anybody was building right now, and was capable of running games at a native 4K. Not every game will, but we wanted to give the tools and the technology and the horsepower to do that.
So the resolution's not a mandate on down like but is it internally for first party? Are you like, hey, let's make sure we're hitting 4K?
No, I'm not a fan at all of mandating creative or technical decisions for studios. I don't think it leads to the best games, right? I wanted to give a platform that is capable of running a native 4K game at frame rate. That's what we designed. Certain developers will choose their own frame rate. Other people said, hey, you should mandate 60. Like, well, some games, like, that's, as a platform holder, when you start mandating those kind of creative decisions.
It's like, well, we've got Uno coming out. Are you telling me Uno needs to be locked at 60 or,
But it's not, it's not just Uno. There are great single player, or not even single player, there are great immersive scenes where you're playing a game, maybe it's not competitive multiplayer where 60, or it's just a game where everybody's going to play competitive multiplayer at 30, where the developer wants to use the render time to do things that take more time than you can do in the cycle time for 60 frames per second, so they go to 30. And you get some beautiful games that run that way. And as a player base, I'm a player. If we get into this mode that we think we should dictate to the developer community what we've deemed as good game, and it's based on a frame rate or a resolution, like that's not the way we watch movies. We don't say, hey, movies have to be 93 minutes long or they're not good, right?
Usually when they're under 90, sometimes you're like, maybe, I don't know.
But the hardware itself, I wanted to make sure could support native 4K. I mean, that was explicit from the beginning in the design of the Xbox One X, was a native 4K console that could hit frame rates that developers wanted to hit. Some of them will hit 60, some will hit 30, some will do checkerboarding, and their games will look amazing. And that's the target for the platform. Let the developers do the work that they're going to do. And I'm really proud of the specs we have in the console. The 9 gigs that are available to developers, the GPU speed, the speed of the RAM is turning out to be a huge benefit. The speed of the hard drive, huge benefit.
And some of this seems like it's coming from a place of like, hey, there was definitely no shortage of developer feedback when it came to the original Xbox One. And how do you feel that this update, the bringing the Xbox One X out, is it reactive to some of the things you've heard? Is it reactive to kind of how the competition has been setting things up and how they've been doing things? Because as the name was getting announced is when I kind of like started piecing together this busted narrative in my head of just like, well, there were a lot of people that were angry about 900p, so this is them going like 4K. And then, I understand that people didn't necessarily like the term X-Bone, and now this one just abbreviates to the word Xbox. Problem solved.
Don't see behind our plans.
Yeah, I was going
You're
to say,
too
is there
smart.
just like some chip on the shoulder of just like, all right, we heard you. Here it is. And delivering this box that is so much more powerful than what's been out there.
It's kind of yes and no. To some extent, a lot of what I try to do with Xbox and the team is reactive because we're taking feedback, right? I'm pretty active in the social communities around gaming. My Twitter account, Xbox Live, I'm there. I'm not trying to hide behind things.
Right.
And I get that feedback, and if I take that feedback and turn it into things that we do with the program, I guess that's reactive, but it's reacting to what people are asking for. I will say with the Xbox One X, I do remember from the original Xbox that there was the feeling around the brand that this is a powerful console. And when we do our brand research even today around what Xbox means to people, power is a word that pops pretty highly. And I wanted to make sure we were kind of living up to the brand promise of what people want from us.
Right.
When we were designing Xbox One X, I didn't know what the competition was doing. I didn't know that there would be a console shipping until later. I didn't know that there would be a console shipping in, when they launched in 16. So there wasn't a direct competitive thing on, hey, I need to go do this because there's something else going. That's honest. I didn't know.
Yeah.
The S, we kind of started the S and the X around the same time. We knew we wanted to do a refresh of Durango, which is the code name for the original console. And we wanted to make it a little bit smaller. We had some time now we wanted to add HDR, 4K upscaling, the UHD drive. We also knew price was going to be important, so now we're at $249 here in the US. So like we want to get to, as you said, those mass market price points. But that power thing was sitting there. I don't know if it was a direct reaction to the launch of Xbox One, but I did feel it. Like I didn't like having a console where people felt like I'm not playing the games that play as well as they do on another platform. So we set the target high, and I knew the price would be different than S, right? You know,
of course,
yeah, and I knew it wasn't going to be for everybody. Some people will say, hey, I'm just fine playing games on the S, and that's my experience. That's what I want to invest to play games on my television, and I'm totally fine with that. Like as a business, running Xbox business, I think that's great. But the X was something that we wanted to design the best console we could, use what we had learned from PC as the Windows, things like the vapor chamber and all these things people tease me about. But to build a piece of hardware that could really hit the specs that today's game developers are asking us to hit.
Yeah. And gosh, yeah, I had something and I lost it there for a sec.
My plan was.
So you talk about some of these older games that are going to be getting these 4K updates, and that's
I think I said over 30 on stage.
Yeah, like Gears, Killer Instinct.
That's our first party. There was the third, like Final Fantasy, Resident Evil.
Yeah. And is that something? Is a lot of work have to go into that stuff to kind of like get these games ready, or is it a case where like, oh, if there's a PC version of the game, kind of just using, because obviously Gears is on the PC, I would imagine.
It was a design point for us. Yeah. A design point for us were developers that have 4K versions of their PC games, that they would be able to do the work to get the 4K update on, I'll call it Scorpio, just because at the time that's what we were talking about, Scorpio quickly. So we designed, really, the biggest star in all of Xbox One X to date has actually been the development kit. And
it's a really cool looking box.
But even the way, forgetting about the way it looks, the focus with the developer on, we want to build the absolute best development kit we've ever built. Because all of this industry, if you can enable developers to be productive on your platform, you're going to get great games. You're going to get great games that look great. And it's not just the hardware itself, it's something we call the XDK, or the Xbox Development Kit, all the tools that we put in that. So as part of designing the development kit and the XDK software, we said, for a team that has a 4K PC version of the game, and I said this like 2 years ago, we were learning this through doing our own PC first-party games, shipping at 4K. I said, I want a team to be able to bring their PC 4K version over quickly, and we did some things. One example, Pix. Pix is our, now I'm really out in left field, so apologies to everybody, but Pix is our profiling tool that we've had on console forever. We brought it over to Windows, so the Windows people, they could start looking at their PIX profile on Windows, knowing that they're probably going to be hitting 4K there, and we were going to want to bring it back, and they'd have the same profiling tool. It's just a random example, but it was really about how can these guys who all have PC games running at 4K come over, and like 30, we actually had to hold that list back, like that, and that is a little bit hyperbole there, but the list of games that people are going to be able to play that are enhanced for the Xbox One, it's a great list. There'll be more games to come. I was down at 343 the other week and saw some things that were really good. So I think people are going to be excited, and mainly because the developers are doing the work, and it's not that challenging if they have a 4K version.
Cool. Do you feel that that some of the talk around E3, some of the expectations going into something like E3 are positive? I asked this because, there was, you got out there, you announced a ton of games, you announced $49.99 price point, and you had a lot of people, myself included to a certain extent, that was like, well, this doesn't match Sony's price, so what the hell? Like that's not.
Is that what you said?
Well, it's like, well, what are they even doing if they're not gonna, because you look at it as like, okay, are they gonna place the full bet? Is kind of how I was looking at it. Around the time of the announcement, I've been thinking about it for the past couple of days, and
no, I totally understand what you're
turned
talking
on
about.
it because I'm like, wait a minute, actually, they've probably got a responsible business to run, and selling consoles for, it's like, I'm sure it would be great if you could sell an Xbox for $70.
I should give them away.
Yeah, just give them out, right? Just take.
You want one? I brought one with me.
You want to be the market leader? Just give them away. Come on, let's do it. But looking at it, like people go into E3 kind of looking for a fight. They go into E3 looking to watch the console manufacturers go head to head with these press conferences and this and that and fire and brimstone and who's going to come out the winner. And I think that's led to a lot of the discussion, or kind of led a lot of the discussion around the price of the X. And do you feel that that sort of stuff is maybe not great in the long run for just video games in general?
Well, yeah. I mean, on that point specifically, I've been hopefully consistent. I'm sure people will find instances where I haven't been as pure as I should be or something. But I'm first and foremost a fan of this industry, and I fundamentally believe that. And I'm lucky enough to land in a job that gives me kind of 24/7 what I love, my hobby. And I want to try to make decisions for our platform that are good for this industry. It is a business. There is competition. But in terms of like cross-play, in terms of back compat, in terms of just allowing other things onto our platform, I'm trying to be a steward of the games industry in my role, as much I'm not alone, to make this a good place for people to play, and for the creators to create the great games that we all want to be playing now and a decade into the future. On the price thing specifically, the fundamental decision on price was driven by the specs that we wanted to go hit.
Right.
It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a competitive reaction to what, I'll just say the PS4 Pro, and people tell me I talk too much about Sony, but you were kind of asking about it this way.
Yeah.
They delivered a great console at $399 last year. That's not the console I wanted to build.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're wrong and I'm right. I wanted to build a console that had the capabilities we've been talking about before for the PC developers, and the stuff we were seeing with our first party that could run those games at native 4K if somebody wanted to go. That doesn't mean the pro's wrong, right? And we're a year later, and we're a higher spec, more expensive box than that box. It's a different experience than what they delivered, and that doesn't. And I like what we delivered. I like what we have at the S level for people who say, I don't know what P's are, or teraflops, or any of this, or frame rate, FPS. Like, I just want to go play a video game.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure we have a great price point there. On the other side, I look at what the premium experience that people want. I see what people are getting on PC, and I want to have our team and work with them to design a console in the Xbox One X that could be the best thing that we could build this year at a console price point. And as you said, I can go build a PC, and I can blow that thing away if I want to go invest to go do that. But on my television, that's the console that we wanted to go build. And I agree with you. Certain people look at it and say, well, if I don't beat Sony, if I don't drive Sony into the ground or something,
Then you're
somehow
not doing
I
your
haven't done
job.
my
Yeah,
job.
it's like a weird.
And it's not a win-lose.
Yeah.
Like many people, like I'm sure yourself, you have multiple consoles. I'm betting.
That's true.
And our business can do just fine with other people succeeding. In fact, like we're shipping Minecraft on the Switch with Nintendo, and it's great. And it's a partnership where it's a win-win partnership between the two companies.
So I read today that's just you're going to just log into an Xbox Live account on a Switch.
Yeah.
For that, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, or connect to a Microsoft account, I guess.
No, it's an Xbox Live account.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our gaming social network.
Right.
We could go down that path if you want to.
Will I be able to earn achievements in a Nintendo Switch game?
I don't know yet. Like that's, I'm guessing no. Like, and this is a collaborative relationship between Nintendo and I. Like, they don't have achievements on their platform. And
right.
I don't know if they want us to. Like, I'd love to be able to do it.
Because I've earned achievements in an iOS game before.
That's
like
right.
Wordament and some of that stuff that came out. Like, you log in and it shows up on the same profile and you're getting points.
Totally
and all
agree.
this other stuff.
Totally agree. And Apple's been great about the things that we want to do with the platform, as has Google with Android, and we have a ton of users there. And the relationship with Nintendo is incredibly strong. We obviously did the Mario mashup pack into Nintendo, into Minecraft. That doesn't happen that often.
No.
So that relationship has been strong. We use Xbox Live as the way to make sure we know who our players are. Controls around parental controls and other things that we put into our platform are there, so that people, and as you're buying things in Minecraft, you want to make sure you have them available on the other platforms. So we have to know who you are.
Right.
And if you have a realm that you've created on the PC and you want to get to it on the Switch, like we have to have an identity system, and we just use Xbox Live. You're still going to buy the game from Nintendo. You don't buy it from us. There's no nefarious It's really just a way for us to unify the Minecraft players, and our social graph, social network inside of Xbox is Xbox Live. But going back to the other thing, the competitiveness, being proud of what you own. Our Fan Fest is amazing, and those people love Xbox. I come out on the stage, and people are so happy and proud to be part of the Xbox community. I love that. I just think as an industry, when we start kind of voting more on other people not succeeding than us having a good time and succeeding, that just feels negative to me, and I don't try to do that. I know people call me on, you said this about them and that about those people. I honestly have no dislike for people in the games industry. I'll never vote for a game to fail, regardless of what platform it's on. I know developers work incredibly hard to build the games that they do, and same thing with the platforms. I want to do the best thing we can do with Xbox, make sure the best games possible are on Xbox, and that you have a great experience. And if what we have isn't for you, and you decide to play on your PC or PlayStation or on your iPhone, great. I'll do what I can to make our experience great on those platforms as well.
Yeah. Just to briefly go back to the cross-compatibility stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sony's been out there saying that they don't necessarily see themselves being a part of the Minecraft family, or the unified Minecraft family. Obviously, the game does exist on their platform,
and we love our PlayStation customers for Minecraft.
Would you characterize those discussions as still ongoing, or I mean, I know they're out there kind of saying like that they can't keep their users safe from people that are not on their platform and some other stuff. Rocket League kind of got caught up in something similar as well. Is that something where you view the door is still open?
Absolutely. Like I would love for players on all platforms to be able to stay connected. I will jump on another grenade on this one, but the fact that somebody would kind of make an assertion that somehow we're not keeping Minecraft players safe, I found, not only from a Microsoft perspective, from a game industry perspective, like I don't know why that has to become the dialogue. Like, that doesn't seem healthy for anyone. And I feel we can always do better with everything that we do. I feel great, our relationship with Minecraft from the time we originally brought it over to 360. We've obviously owned it now for a couple of years, and where it's gone. And I just really found the whole discussion around safety with our game, and that somehow we wouldn't take that as a top priority. And frankly, through our parental controls on Xbox Live and everything else that we've done, shown that that's incredibly important to us as a platform.
Yeah, that stuff exists, and also we're talking about Minecraft.
That's right.
Like,
and frankly, and Nintendo, like we're on, like
Yeah, you want to talk about people that are like maybe overly protective in spots. Like there you go. They'll lock it down.
But the door is open. I don't mean to like shut the. I'd love all Minecraft players to have the full Minecraft experience. We take the safety of Xbox Live, of our players across all of our games inside of Minecraft. Obviously, an incredibly important part of that. It's incredibly important to our team and the work that they do around parental controls and, frankly, accessibility and everything else. We would never put Minecraft in a place where we felt like it wasn't. We weren't keeping our players safe.
So what's next for Xbox One X at this point? The pre-orders haven't started yet.
Not yet.
Is it FCC related on that one?
Yeah, that was it. And it's also the reason we didn't have a complete list of the worldwide markets that it will be coming. We're starting on November 7th. We say starting worldwide. We'll do a better job than we did at the launch of Xbox One, where I thought we were a little spotty in terms of when it hit the right markets. There's a couple countries where the kind of the approvals take a little bit longer, but I feel good.
Are you still looking at yields and like does it seem like on day one that there's going to be a lot of these available, or is it going to maybe be a little limited?
No, it does. I said I've been using mine at home for a while now, as some other members of the team have. So we feel good about where the hardware is. You use the word yield. That's exactly the yield. You built X. How many of X work?
Right.
Starting from the chip all the way up. But I feel good about what we should have when we start. We Mike Nichols and I, who runs marketing for Xbox, really think through those scenarios before we stand on stage and say something. It's going to be fun. We need to finish a couple things. The platform's still coming together in terms of software and the operating system for it. We made a change last week about increasing the amount of RAM that the developers get access to. This is kind of all the process you go through. But it's going to be fun. Shipping is always great. It's challenging. We've got some Crackdown's a launch game, a game I love from 360. There's a joke. Maybe we should put a Halo beta on the Crackdown disc this time.
That was the thing though. That was everyone bought Crackdown because they had the Halo beta and then realized oh wait, Crackdown's really good.
How many times I got called Zone of the Enders or something?
Right. Yeah. Totally. That ended up working out pretty well.
It did. I remember though at first there was a little bit of the throwaway game, and it was such a game. Left trigger lock on, right trigger shoot. It was. And I've been playing it with the team, and it's on the floor playable here. It feels and plays like a real full Crackdown. Crackdown 2 wasn't what it should have been, mainly because we didn't give the team the time to do what they should have done. But where they are now is really
I might
great.
say they've had a lot of time
they have.
on this one, huh?
It's the same producer on our side too. Peter Connolly was on the original Crackdown, and we wanted to make sure Peter was connected to this one and getting Crackdown 3 done. Obviously, Dave Jones was involved. We have a couple teams involved, but getting the old team back together so that the stuff, so it felt like a real Crackdown game with, as you said, enough time.
Yeah, that's cool. Good. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all this stuff hitting and watching people get their hands on it and yeah, hardware launches are exciting.
They are.
It's
Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks.
So, thanks so much for stopping by, Phil.
I wanted to say one thing because you guys have been courteous enough to have me on the last few years, and this is it seems weird because it's the middle of E3, but it's kind of the back end of E3 for me. I'll be leaving tomorrow. I have to go do some other work, but. I love the show that you guys do here. I think the tone you take with gaming is real. You always ask great questions. I feel like we get enough time to sit down and have a full discussion about topics, and it doesn't come kind of buzzword headlines that get pulled out. So one, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on over the last few years, and also just the show you guys do I think is fantastic.
Thanks. Anytime you're in San Francisco, you want to come by, we can hang out for an hour and do it off cycle outside E3.
That'd be great. I'd love it.
All right. Well, we are going to be back in a bit, and everybody stay tuned, and we'll get another round of guests in here and keep going as the evening continues. Stay tuned.